Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast blending soul and science-based strategies to empower pandemic moms like you, raising kindergarten-ready kids. I'm Cara Tyrrell, your host, a lifetime lover of littles, girl mom, early childhood educator, and conscious parenting coach who truly believes that how we connect and collaborate with our kids in the first 5 years is how we raise world-ready kids who will change this world. Today's episode is pretty unique. I have my friend Meng Li here, and she's the founder of Huhu, which is a maker of gender-neutral and functional diaper backpacks for parents. And the word parents here is the key to this episode. We are going to be talking a lot about dads or partners and other caregivers and inviting that into the conversation. So I'm so excited. She's also mom to 2 young kiddos, and she resides in the Bay Area. Let's have this conversation with Meng and talk about how we can include everybody in the conversation around parenting. But before we dive in, I would love if you could do me a favor. Could you scroll on down, rate the show after you listen, and leave a review, ask a question, suggest a topic. This will help me know how to better serve you, who to bring in. It will also help friends find us, other moms who need to be hearing what we're talking about together. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode. I am so excited to have my good friend Meng Li here with us. She is going to talk about something we don't often do on our show because we're so mom-centric, right? We talk to you, we care about you, we want to hear from you, but there's a partner in your life. And so today's show is going to be really special, including the whole family and how we work together to promote self and self-care. So welcome, Meng. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Cara. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, this conversation is going to be awesome. So before we get started, let's kind of ground into kind of some linguistics about the conversations we're going to be having so our listeners can have their own experience. Can you clarify for us as we move forward? We're going to be saying mom and dad a lot, but what do we really mean when we're talking about a 2-person family?
Yeah, I think about it as there's the birth parent and then there's the non-birth parent who plays the support role, but is also very clearly sort of a big, the other partner in the partnership. And I think it's easy for us to fall back into traditional gender roles in terms of the mom is the birth parent and the dad is the non-birth parent. But as we all know, not every family looks like that. And not every non-birth partner is someone who identifies as male. So want to make sure that we are cognizant of all types of different family structures when we are referencing what we mean when we say mom and dad and birth parent and non-birth parent.
Fantastic. So for the ease of this conversation, we're going to default to mom and dad. But if you're listening and you have a blended family that looks different, know that we're talking to you too. And then I also wanted to kind of ground in with what is our definition of self-care? It's a very loaded term, but self-care is unique to each individual. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I think about it as, and I agree with you, the word self-care is thrown around a ton and everyone knows exactly what it means. I think the way that I think about it is feeling replenished and feeling like you have the energy and to be able to live the life that you want and to feel happy and fulfilled in the life that you are leading versus I would say not, or feeling like you're constantly playing catch up, you're not fulfilled, you don't have the energy, you're just moving through the motions, the opposite of that.
I love it. So it sounds like you're talking about an experience, that we're having an experience that resets ourselves. And that is unique to each and every person in the house. What resets me is not at all what feels calming and grounding and restorative to my husband or my kids. So it's important to be aware of them.
Totally. And I think that whatever self-care looks like helps enable you to be present with your family, with your kids, and not feel like you're just constantly exhausted and trying to keep up.
Everyone talks about that fun little language quip that says, oh, we don't want to survive, we want to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason people say it so often is that it's a legitimate desire. And I hear that in your words.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't just want to be surviving our days. We want to lean into knowing that we're safe inside our space
Mm-hmm.
and that we're understood by the people around us. And that is the best kind of self-care, knowing that people love us that much.
Totally.
Yeah. So, one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show is that you are very clear about the inclusivity of gender and whatever that means to the person and who they are. And your company, actually, you created a gender neutral diaper bag.
Yeah.
Those two things together are so fascinating. So let's talk a little bit more about dads.
Yep.
You are trying to include them in the process of feeling empowered to care for that child, care for themselves, and care for their partner, the child's mom. So what do you think dads can do to be supportive of that mom right before and right after they have their baby?
The way that I think about it from my perspective is there's two ways. One, there's just acknowledgement of what the mom is taking on and what is doing. And I think personally for me, verbal acknowledgement goes a long way. It's like, I know that, if I say this, if my husband's like, I know I can't breastfeed our baby, but I know how much work that is and what it takes in terms of the sacrifice you're making. And I appreciate that you're doing that for our family, as an example. Just, acknowledgement of what the mom is going through, what that experience is like, how much they're taking on in terms of additional work, and how much their life has changed, like post-baby versus pre-baby. So that's a big part of it. And the second part of it, and this is something, we have two kids I have a toddler, 2-year-old, and our older daughter is almost 7. And so our kids are slightly, they're out of that baby phase. And we talk about this in our house a lot, is just this idea of a mental load. There's the physical caretaking of kids, which is already a lot, but then there's everything else that goes with it. And it's all the logistics and all of the work that sometimes feels like it can be invisible. And then just acknowledging that work is real. It takes time. And then figuring out how the dad can split that and take on more of that so it feels more equal, more 50-50 and more equal. Because I think that there's a tendency that the mom is the default and does everything. For example, like it's not just about taking your kid to a friend's birthday party. It's everything else. It's picking out the gift. It's putting it on the calendar. It's remembering it, getting them dressed, getting them there. It's not just a simple act of, you took them from point A to point B, but everything that goes into anything that our kids do. So those are two immediate things that come to mind for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's really important to think about both sides. I know there is a bit of a collective mindset, and it's generationally been handed to us. I know in my house, if mom is home, it is generally assumed that she will be making dinner.
Yep.
And yet when I leave, when I travel, or if it's been announced that I won't be there that evening, somehow somebody always steps up and people get fed.
Right. Right. Nobody goes hungry. No one starves.
Nobody goes hungry just because I'm not in the building. Yeah. So yes, you're right. I mean, these are things we really have to think about and break down and then reframe based on the household that we live in. I want to go back for a second to something you said about the huge transition that having a baby is, and that it's a whole new world you're living in. Moms do tend to take on the role of preparation, learning, understanding that shift is about to happen. They are organized, right? They do a lot of prep work. Okay, what's it going to look like on the other side? What do I have to do to be ready? Dads don't very often get invited into that journey in the same way. So, do you feel like there is a way that we can shift that and those conversations can start to happen a little bit earlier?
Definitely. Yeah. And I hadn't really thought about in terms of it's biological in the sense that women have to start planning. They have to start thinking earlier because there's this huge physical change that's happening. And dads don't have, they just literally don't have to because their day-to-day lives when their partner is pregnant, it doesn't really change that much for them. So it's already established even before the baby arrives that this is the way that both parents operate. I think so. I think it always helps to have a conversation early. I don't know, honestly, what's the best way to have that conversation or what's the best way to bring dads into the process earlier because I found sometimes having conversations or planning in the theoretical, it's never feels the same versus when you're like, oh my God, we have a baby now. Like, what are we supposed to do? Or I have this toddler. Like when you're right, it's like childbirth. It's like you can take childbirth classes and you're like, okay, well, I sort of understand what's about to happen. But until you experience it, you have no idea. And so I agree that it would be great. But then in practice, like how effective will it be?
Yeah, so maybe it's more about conversations about the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When this baby comes, I'm going to need help. And I just want you to know I'm going to ask for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just opening the door.
Or even shifting the language. I find myself doing this where I ask, like, can you please help me do this thing for our kids? It's like, well, no, you don't like, you shouldn't feel like you're helping me do something. We should be doing this together and figure out even how we shift the language or the way we approach it and to talk about it in a way where this is a decision, this is something we're doing together. And yes, the mom is doing the primary physical work and all labor. But how can it feel less of, hey, I'm helping you go through this experience that you're going through versus this is something that's collectively for both of us.
That is a great point. Yeah, we need to shift that language and that way of thinking. And quite honestly, as moms, we tend to martyr ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
People ask us, do you need help? And we say, oh, no, I've got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to start there. Absolutely. Attention, all conscious moms. Are you ready to level up your mom game and embrace the joyful journey of motherhood? Introducing the Mom Life Be Like University Summit, happening June 19th to 23rd. It's the ultimate event designed exclusively for moms like you. I'll be there as one of the speakers on day one, Mindset Mama. But join us for 5 incredible days packed with inspiration, insights, and transformational experiences. From mindful parenting to self-care strategies, empowering mompreneurs to finding balance in all areas of your life, we've got you covered. Discover practical tools, expert guidance, and a supportive community to help you thrive in every aspect of mom life. Don't miss out. Come join us for every day of this event and register now at momlifebelike.com. So, self-care for a new mom looks and feels and sounds very different than self-care for someone who is yet to be a mom or someone who is like in your stage of parenting, right? What you would choose to do to replenish your spirit and your energy 3 weeks postpartum is different than with a 3 and a 7-year-old. So any tips or ideas of what you think that could look like right out of the gate?
For self-care at like 3 weeks postpartum.
Yeah, I hear you saying it's like the sharing of the responsibilities almost feels like the gift of self-care.
Yeah, in some ways, I think having the time to be able to do things where you can, I think with the big part of self-care and replenishment in the early phases is physical, right? It's like you just need to sleep, you need to rest, you have to, do XYZ to physically feel better. And having the time to do that so that not having to worry about laundry or cooking dinner or I don't know, walking all of the things that exists and has to get done as part of a household and family. And just thinking, okay, this isn't something that I need to also think about so that I can really focus on just rest and recovering physically, I think is a big piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, reframing for ourselves that it is caring for ourselves, right? That meeting our basic needs in that particular setting is self-care.
Right.
Because we're in survival mode, and the first 3 months of a new human's life are exactly that.
Right.
We just have to get moving
Right.
through, and then past that fourth trimester, it's
Right.
going to look and sound a little bit different.
Right.
So I'm curious what you think about this, because it really is about the relationship and about the balance between who you are. Like, you guys came together, right? Moms and their partners came together and created a new life. And now you've got this new experience in front of you. You didn't lose your identity along the way. You're still the person you were before that baby came along. And so preserving your identity, I think, sounds a lot like self-care, which means still being able to do the things that you like to do individually and as a couple as your baby grows. What are your thoughts on that?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great point in terms of, just because I had a baby doesn't mean that all of my hobbies and interests go away. And, your personality doesn't completely change once you have a baby, but it's sometimes hard. You lose some of that because you're so focused on this big other change, but to continue to remember that. And yeah, I feel like I know a lot of women who feel like once they have a kid, they're just defined by, I'm just a mom, or this is all my free time and spare time is sucked up by taking care of my kids or thinking about their needs. And it's hard that you forget, like, oh, I used to have different hobbies, or these are the friends I used to see, or the things I used to do before. And to not forget that, because that is also something that oftentimes helps you reset.
And I feel like that's true for both mom and dad, right? So I was listening to a podcast of Rachel Hollis's recently where she talked about this, about the time swap, where mom gives dad time and dad gives mom time, and it's on the calendar and it happens. Like, they choose their frequency and their duration, but it is a non-negotiable event that happens. And so even when you're down in the chaos of the parenting space, every second Tuesday, I get 3 hours to myself to choose to spend however I choose to spend it, right? That's something that they can support each other with. And so I loved that. And I loved that mom was giving that to dad too.
Right. Because you're right. I think dads also need that time to remember that this is who they were before they became a parent, before they had to start taking care of a baby as well, and to not forget that.
Yeah, because one of the things I wanted to talk about today was self-care for dads. And it feels like a really natural segue into it in a society that kind of says, well, they show up and do what they need to do when they do it, but dads are busy, dads are focused, dads have the job, they do the thing. And we live in a society now where primarily there's a huge number of moms who are working moms. And so we do both. Right.
Yeah.
And so we need to honor and respect our partners while also knowing that we're shifting the balance.
Yeah.
You're somebody with a job and an identity. I'm somebody with a job and an identity. And together we're parents. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, where do you think the line is from just surviving and then falling into kind of a, for lack of a better term, a resentment mode, where we're like, well, I guess this is just mine to do. And yet we're giving them time. We're giving that partner time to do their stuff too. And finding that shared experience of, I respect you and love you, and I'm so grateful that you are part of this journey of raising this child with me. And that's why I really want you to go do the things you need to do to feel good.
Yeah. Your question is, where is that line?
I feel like it's a slippery slope and we don't realize that we're there until we're there. And so what can we do to prevent ourselves from arriving there?
I mean, direct communication, which is easier said than done, but communicating directly in the moment when something is an issue, I think always helps versus not talking about it, having it fester, which turns into resentment pretty quickly. I think the other piece is maybe setting aside time to have regular check-ins to say, how are things going? What is it that you need? What do I need? And it's almost like I have to put it in work terms. But I mean, like, and maybe it's something that we should just be more willing to do in our personal lives is having one-on-ones, right? Of saying like, hey, when you're in a corporate work environment, you have one-on-ones and connects with your colleagues and people all the time where you're talking about the status of things and talking through things. I think we don't have that same, we don't think about things that way in our personal lives because it feels just so structured and work-like. But I think when you are parents, it's a job. I mean, it's literally a job. And so you have to treat it in some ways like it is a job and take some of those same processes and habits from your work job and apply it to parenting as well.
You are so right. Yes. And it gives us a frame of reference to work within
Right,
that
it's a
we
framework.
know and we can do it.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I love it because immediately I went, yes, is that we have to avoid the assuming, right? We have to do the direct communicating and avoid assuming, especially when we're in those early phases of parenting and we are deprived. Right? We're so at our base level, we're deprived of sleep. And all of that means that we can't think things through very clearly.
Right.
You just brought up something really interesting for me in that we can blend this identity that we have, these things we like to do, and we can include our kids in them. So if it's in alone time for mom once a month, alone time for dad once a month, awesome. But what if we also did a mom and child go do something that mom enjoys doing once a month? Now dad has another spot that is his to fill. And then dad and child go do something that dad likes to do once a month. They share that experience. They're creating their relationship. And then mom has another spot that she gets to fill with her own choices.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great idea.
Now, my kids are much older. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I almost was just like, oh, that'd be fun to go back and try. But I am well past that stage of parenting. But I'm very excited that we got to this moment where this is something that people who are listening can go do.
Yeah.
They can take the corporate approach, have a conversation, make a plan, put it on the calendar, and then execute it.
Yeah. Yeah. Treating your parenting as if it's a job, because it is. And then what are some things that you use in your job that you can bring over that can help make this other job that you have in your spare time go a little bit smoother and a little bit more easily.
I think a lot of people just had an aha moment as well. This is awesome. I would love for you to tell us more about this diaper bag that you have designed and why it mattered so much to you to think about dad's perspective while you were doing it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was born out of my own personal experience. This was right after I had my son, my second kid, in 2020, and during the height of COVID, which was not fun. But yeah, it's, you know this, but when you have your second kid, it feels like you're packing up half your house to do anything. And it was something that just caused so much stress and anxiety in terms of packing up everything that my son needed, all of his baby stuff, and then everything that my daughter needed, her toys and snacks and spare clothes and layers. And the diaper bag market, I felt like I'd gone through so many different options, and it's either sort of low cost and low quality and it'll fall apart in a couple months, or it's expensive, higher end, but it's designed to look like a women's fashion statement and just really not very functional. And particularly for things that are designed to look like a women's fashion statement, not dads or men don't necessarily want to use it. They don't want to carry it. They end up having their own bag, which causes more chaos because now you have two things full of stuff and you can't find anything. Or again, it defaults to the mom does everything. She physically has to carry everything. And so thinking about something it was important to me to have something that was high quality and really functional, but designed in a way that all parents can use it and feel comfortable that it's part of it stylistically suits them, and not feeling like it's so gendered and designed for the mom. And thus the underlying piece is that you're the primary caretaker, and not feeling like this is a product that already reinforces that messaging was what was really important to me.
Wow. So what I just heard blew my mind. And maybe it shouldn't. Maybe this is just me, but that an object can define our identity.
Yeah.
Husbands don't run around carrying wives' purses on purpose or happily. And there's a reason for it.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. And are you thrilled with how it turned out and the design?
Yeah, I'm super happy with it. I mean, I think there's always the perfectionist in me is always like, oh, there's this one little thing I want to fix. But that's for Jen too. But yeah, I'm super excited with the way it came out. I've gotten great feedback from dads, which is sort of what I was hoping for. And yeah, I definitely think that fashion and that's everything that we wear and carry is we all, whether we explicitly do it or not, it's a way that we portray ourselves and who we are and identity. And for some reason in the parenting space, it's all so designed for women when, it feels like a very antiquated sort of a category in a lot of ways when it comes to style and what it's saying.
Wow, that just got really deep. I love that you are breaking it. I love that you're busting out the stereotypes and you're saying, from every angle, when you wear this gender neutral diaper bag, you are a true family.
Yeah, right. It's like anyone, both parent can use it as they should to carry everything for your family.
Well, can you tell people where they could find it?
Yeah, so you can find it on my website, which is www.meethuhu, which is huhu.com. And we have pre-orders live right now, and then orders will ship at the end of this year in December 2022.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited. I can't wait to hear once you are in full launch what it's going to look like. And I'm gonna walk around and keep my eye out for people and say, hey, I know that. I know that diaper bag. Well, thank you for sharing some time with us and your passion for making sure that whole households are being born and raised together. And I can't wait to hear how the rest of your journey goes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Cara.
Exciting news. I wrote you a book, an ebook, and I recorded the audio version for you as well because you are busy multitasking, mindful mamas. Grab your copy today of The Pandemic Mom's Guide to Preschool Readiness and anchor into the 5 executive functioning skills that your child needs to practice on the daily using you as a guide. It's so easy to do. I've built it so that it just naturally happens inside your day as you interact with your kids. And yes, each chapter is delivered to you 1 chapter a day to your email so that all you have to do is click and listen for a few minutes. It's easy, it's efficient, and it's effective. Let's raise some school and world ready kids. Just go to caratyrrell.com/ebook. That's Cara Tyrrell, TYRRELL.com/ebook and grab your copy of the Pandemic Mom's Preschool Readiness Guide today. Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive as you transform the toddler years.